Good morning. It is December 29th. Welcome to the Ignition News. Before we get started, you know the deal. If you're listening to the show, you owe the world one good act. Not next week, not when you feel like it. You owe them that today. So, whether that's a phone call to someone who needs it or an hour of your time for something that matters, one conversation that needs to happen, the news only gets you so far. I want to hear what's new in your community and what you're doing about it. So let's talk about the news and what is happening today. It's December 29th. We're almost done with 2025. So let's go to Detroit. We've got some breaking news out of Detroit. For over a decade, Detroit has been demolishing tens of thousands of abandoned homes. It's part of a massive program that they're removing 47,000 vacant homes, and now they're down to only about 1,000 homes left to do. It's about $500 million they've spent to do that. If you've ever actually been to Detroit, it's a really big problem. And part of what they're obviously trying to do is to help build new homes that are livable so that people can have them. But with this demolition, there's been a real problem in it, and that is the backfill from this doing the demolition has caused a serious problem for the community with toxic dirt. The backfill dirt is toxic, and that's really unsafe for human beings. This is why we do the Ignition News, because this is probably a story that you haven't actually heard about. Obviously, Detroit's been through a lot. Here's what we found out. In September, the city's inspector general found that 42 of 47 sites had contaminated work. This is a particular company called Gayanga, and that's owned by Mr. Brian McKinney. 42 of the 47 sites had contaminated backfill. Of those contaminated sites, 62 were found to be unsafe for direct human contact. Well, this is really important to talk about because if we're trying to make homes in locations or areas more habitable for people and we're backfilling with contaminated dirt, well, that's obviously a huge problem. It's not the first time, by the way. In 2024, two officials from a Warren-based contracting company were fined $4.7 million and banned from doing work in the city for 15 to 20 years because they were using contaminated dirt that they got from the city for free. Oh, sorry, they were using contaminated dirt and they were billing the city and they got the contaminated dirt for free. This is the kind of thing we talk about hyper-local action, why it's important to know what's going on in your local community. So, the problem with this, of course, is that cleanup, right? The cleanup cost of this is pretty staggering. Removing and replacing the dirt at a single site is going to cost about $18,000. That's almost as much as it costs for the demolition itself. If all 400 plus sites are contaminated, that's going to cost $8 million. Imagine where that $8 million could go. And what happens to the families, of course, who might eventually build homes on these sites? What about the kids playing in the yard? What happens to the property value? People know about this. Well, the city is saying that it's going to sue the contractors to recoup those costs, but those contractors can declare bankruptcy. They can dissolve their LLCs. This is actually something that we experienced in our home as well. We had a leak in our house. We had to get that leak fixed. And this company, they came in, they did all this work to fix the water leak, and then they didn't fix the leak and they dissolved their company. They just disappeared. And I'm like, good luck getting a hold of us. Good luck holding us accountable. Now imagine trying to do that on a national level. This is why we're doing the Ignition News, everybody, because we want to share the stories that people aren't talking about, that the billionaires don't want you to know, that the major cities, the major contractors don't want you to know. That's why we do the Ignition News. If you're new to the show, I do want to invite you to please subscribe on all of your favorite podcast platforms. And we are broadcasting live both on Instagram and TikTok for this December 29th edition of the show. Not every show is recorded live on TikTok, so you got to make sure you're subscribing, whether that's on Substack, Spotify, Apple, or what's the other one? YouTube. Hey, this is kind of an interesting one. Who remembers MH370, the plane that went missing? You wouldn't believe it. They actually started searching for that plane again. It actually starts tomorrow. The search for MH370 starts back up tomorrow. That's pretty crazy. That plane went missing on March 18th of 2014, and they searched thousands and thousands of nautical square miles to try to find that plane. Obviously, the families want answers to that. It's one of the great unsolved mysteries. One of the great conspiracies about this is what happened to MH370. Was it the pilot? Was it mechanical? Was it aliens? We don't know because we've never found the plane. Well, it's actually going to fire up tomorrow. Ocean Infinity, a U.S. marine robotics firm, is going to conduct a 55-day underwater search. This is actually the third time that they've been looking for this underwater with this technology. The first was suspended in January 2017. They covered 120,000 square kilometers looking for that plane. And then the next one was 2018, where they searched 112,000 kilometers. Here's what makes this one a little bit different. They are working on a no find, no fee. So Ocean Infinity literally has to find the plane, or else they don't actually get any of their money back for all everything they've invested into that. I hope we find that plane. Like it's been one of my, I don't know about you. Every time I see a documentary on YouTube or something, I always look it up. I want to know what happened. So if you don't know what happened with MH370, maybe it was a long time ago. It was 12 years ago. So what's happening was the plane was flying from Kuala Lumpur to Beijing, and it basically disappeared off the radar less than an hour after takeoff. It took a major turn in its flight trajectory, and then it just completely went off the radar. It's not just about obviously finding and solving that mystery, though. It's about like closing this out for the families. Imagine being a family member and never knowing for 12 years what happened to your family members. And obviously, the fact that a huge plane like that can just disappear and not be found for 12 years is obviously pretty crazy. 239 people obviously theoretically lost their life. And we've been kind of waiting for 11 years to find out. We need to find the answers. And if you're Ocean Infinity, you literally need to find answers because they've invested millions of dollars to try to find this plane, which they only can recover if they recover the plane. Welcome to the Ignition News, everybody. We're broadcasting live today. This is a daily news channel. We launched a news channel. That's kind of cool. We launched a news channel because obviously what happened with the increasing capture of the United States media, we have to try to carve out a place to protect and provide valuable information. I'm guessing you didn't hear about toxic dirt in Detroit. And I'm guessing you might not have heard about MH3 or the 239 family members affected. Let's get into some of the other stories. And by the way, if you're new to the show, please consider following us on all of your favorite platforms. Just look for The Ignition News or type in theignition.news and you'll find us. Our next story, we've been talking a lot about trans rights on the show. It's one of those stories in America that needs to be covered. It's very important. The administration and now state governments are actively working to disappear trans individuals, and we need to make sure that people know what's going on. We need to make sure that we talk about it. And let's go to Texas. Texas is actually making a list of transgender people. And how are they doing that? You're asking yourself. Well, they're actually using driver's licenses. Since August of 2024, Texas has blocked people from updating the gender marker on their driver's licenses. Think about that. And that's even if they have a court order or an amended birth certificate. But here's what they didn't actually say out loud. Every time someone tries to update their gender marker, the Texas Department of Public Safety reports it to a special email account. They scan and then they save that person's information. They record their name and their license number. So think about that. That is incredibly creepy if you think about it. Every time someone tries to change the gender marker on their license, literally someone is narking on them. They're reporting them to the state. This is some shit right here. That's why we're talking about it. I'm guessing you might not have heard about this, right? As of August of 2025, Texas had a list of 110 people who tried to update their gender marker in 1 year. I ask you the question, why are they keeping lists of people? It's a question we need to know. The Texas newsroom obtained internal documents showing this information. Employees from driver's license offices across the state, from El Paso to Plano, have been reporting attempts for people to change the gender marker on their driver's license, but it actually gets much worse. Some employees reported people who just called in with questions about changing their license. People who walked into an office asking for guidance. So people who just went into the office said, "Oh, I have a question about changing my driver's license." They're narking on those people too. They didn't even file a formal request. So there is some questionability as to whether that's even legal, although there's a larger question about the legality of this as well. But someone who did, so I mean, this is literally state surveillance. This is literally state surveillance. It's wild. Texas will not say why they're keeping the list. The Department of Public Safety has not responded to questions about how the information is being used or whether it's being shared with other agencies. This is why this is pretty terrifying. In 2022, Ken Paxton, everybody know Ken Paxton? He asked DPS to send him data about drivers who may be transgender. At the time, DPS said they didn't track that information, and so now they started tracking it. Texas has passed multiple laws targeting transgender people in recent years. A recent ban on gender-affirming care for minors, a bathroom bill requiring people to use restrooms that match their sex assigned at birth, and and let's see what else. Oh, here's an example of that. Transgender activist Rai Vasquez reported being asked to show her ID before using a restroom in the state capitol. That is insane. A law defining male and female based on reproductive systems, and a law forcing public school teachers to dead name trans students. Those are all the things that they're doing in Texas alone. That's insane. And now, of course, they have a list, a literal actual list of people. So, really, the question is, how is this information going to be used? How's it going to be leveraged in terms of whatever legislation comes next? What is the state planning to do? It makes me uneasy, and I'm guessing that you probably haven't heard about it. But I think part of it that's really unquestionable is the uncertainty, the fear. The fear is part of the point as well. Here's what we need to understand, okay? This is not just about your driver's license. It's about surveillance. It's about, obviously the state creating a registry, a physical registry of people. And what they do with that information, just the lack of knowledge about what they're going to do with that information, that's part of the point as well, making people uncertain. So what we do estimate is there's about 161,000 transgender adults living in Texas. That is actually less than 1% of the population. And look at all the resources that the state of Texas, with all the problems that this country's having right now, look at all the resources the state of Texas is putting into literally tracking people down. So they're not worried about the economy. They're not protecting people. It's about control. This is about control. So if you're not in Texas or you're not transgender, pay attention, because what happens in Texas is not going to just stay in Texas. If these kinds of things aren't stopped, it's going to come to your neighborhood. And it might not be about whether you are or are not trans or what your sex is at birth. It'll be about something the government decides they don't like about you. That's why we're talking about here on The Ignition News. Welcome to the show, everybody. I do want to let you know that The Ignition just launched. We've been live for exactly 1 week, 7 days now. Our show is sponsored by Ignite, Fighting Fascism in the Age of Its Rise. It's our signature podcast. It is in the top 5% of Spotify podcasts, and it is your definitive guide to surviving chaos and fascism in America. Ignite teaches you all of the things you need to know about how to push back and stop fascism in your local community, not just by calling Congress, but by fixing the pothole, or by getting to know who your elected representative is, or by being and participating in mutual aid groups. You can make your community better, push back at fascism, and claim this country for you and the people who deserve it. Download Ignite, Fighting Fascism in the Age of Its Rise, on all of your favorite podcast platforms. Let's get back to the next story. The next story is actually Trump voters. And what we now know is that his voters are turning on him. And it's happening a lot faster than they're really able to handle. There was a couple of focus groups that were commissioned throughout 2025, and they brought together a bunch of Trump voters in swing states. And the results of this are absolutely devastating for Republicans heading into the 2026 midterms. I'm going to read you some quotes of some Trump voters and let you know what they said. Robert L., a 54-year-old Virginia independent who backed Trump in 2024 but voted for Abigail Spanberger in November's gubernatorial election, said Trump's claims about improving inflation are delusional and shows he's out of touch. Justin Kay, a 39-year-old independent from Arlington, Virginia, said Trump hasn't tried at all to tackle inflation. He's been focusing on prosecuting his political enemies, pardoning people, and he just does whatever he wants, and there's no consequences. Where have you been for the last 10 years? After campaigning on a promise to bring down prices, the president started calling out the cost of living and affordability as a hoax, a Democratic hoax. I can assure you, listeners of the show, that the cost of living is not, in fact, a hoax. Personally, our power bill went up 20% month over month. Just the power bill. This kind of thing's really starting to strangle us. I had to purchase an SD card for something for the show. And I looked because I had purchased the exact same SD card 3 months ago. And the SD card that I purchased in October, November, December. Yes, let me pull it up right now. $29.99 was the SD card that I purchased. I purchased the same SD card literally today. It was $55. $55 for the exact same product. Now that is being driven by memory constraints brought on physical memory by AI. That's one thing, but it's also tariffs. It's all these things. That RAM, that memory gets most likely manufactured in China or Taiwan or Vietnam, right? So it's getting hit with a tariff as well. $29 to $55. strangling the American public. But think about that. The president of the United States says that your affordability is a hoax. A YouGov poll shows 61% of people say Trump is making prices and inflation sound far more rosy than they actually are. AKA, what they're actually saying is it's bullshit. The president is lying. The president's saying there's no problem and there's a big fucking problem. Another 45% say they expect his policies to leave them financially worse off in 2026. And his overall approval rating on the economy is 37%. Who are these 37%? It's probably rich people with don't want to pay taxes. There's not that many rich people in America, by the way. The tariffs, by the way, that's a particularly tough spot. Tariffs are a tax on the American people. And finally, people are starting to realize that. And it's affecting more than just the individual good you buy. It's every component of every process and every part that you buy. And if you're just using my SD card as one example, right? So if my memory costs more, putting the show up costs more. So the hosting platform for the show gets more expensive. It spirals, right? If you're trying to build a home and it costs more because equipment is getting more expensive, it costs more because labor is getting more expensive, all these things spiral, right? People tried to warn people before the election that, American citizens pay the tariffs. Americans pay the tariffs, but apparently people were just delusional about it. Now, here's where we can actually see that, by the way. GDP has halved. GDP, gross domestic product, it's gone down from 2.8% last year to 1.6%. So even the numbskulls out there who say, oh, it's not so bad, that's literally just math. I know math is challenging for some of you. I really know that is tough for some of you, but 2.8 to 1.6, that's not difficult math, okay? That's 1.2%. If you want, we can do the math on the show. You can just make it 28 and make it 16, okay? Can we do that? 28 minus 16, put the decimal point back. We're doing math lessons for you here now. But voters are actually noticing that, and that obviously showed up in the last bout of special elections. Democrats now hold a 5.3% advantage when voters are asked about which party's House candidates they will support in 2026. It should be much more. It is disappointing that the Democratic Party sucks so much that we really don't have a functional opposition party. But nonetheless, even without the functional opposition party, we're doing a good job. Even Trump has been forced to admit that most Americans don't share his rosy economic outlook. In a recent interview, he said, "It may take people a while to figure all these things out. All this money that's pouring into our country is building things right now. Car plants, AI, lots of stuff." That's the president of the United States. Everybody. The thing about it is, you cannot gaslight people about the cost of eggs. You cannot gaslight people about their groceries bill. You can call inflation a hoax all you want, but when the power bill goes up, or the internet bill goes up, or clothing costs go up, or presents under the tree go up, people are going to call bullshit. And when they call bullshit, they're going to lose. It's going to be an absolute wipeout in the midterms, in spite of the lack of a prominent opposition party. And that's why we've been doing the work that we're doing. And we're going to keep telling the truth here on the Ignition News. Thanks, everybody. We're broadcasting live today, recording our December 29th morning show. You can get the episode by going to any of your favorite podcast platforms, whether that's Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or YouTube, or Substack, and just download the latest edition of the Ignition News. Why are we doing this? Well, because the billionaires have captured your media. And so we made our own news channel. I have a great final segment for you today. I'm excited about this. You're probably not surprised to hear this. I've got an update on our favorite mayor, America's favorite mayor, Zohran Mamdani. This is a really cool story. He's going to have a different kind of inauguration. He's getting sworn in on January 1st, and he's getting sworn in by none other than Bernie Sanders, who's swearing him in. And check this out. He's going to be the 112th mayor of New York City, and he's getting sworn in an abandoned subway station. That is so cool. The old City Hall station opened in 1904. It was one of New York's original 28 subway station, but it's been closed since 1945. It is a beautiful, ornate facility, and it's sitting under City Hall Park. And the mayor-elect chose that location deliberately. Here's what he said. When old City Hall Station first opened in 1919, it was a physical monument to a city that dared to be both beautiful and build great things that would transform working people's life. That ambition need not be a memory confined only to our past, nor must it be isolated to the tunnels beneath the city. It will be the purpose of this administration, fortunate enough to serve New Yorkers from building above. Amazing. 1 p.m., January 1st, Senator Bernie Sanders is going to conduct the public ceremony to swear in America's favorite mayor. He's 36 years old, everyone. Look at all this. He's taking this abandoned relic of the past, reminding us what we're all doing this for, and saying, we will build again. We will build for you, for all of us. These great things are not just relics of the past. Now, is he going to be successful in his agenda? Is he going to be blocked by the billionaires? Well, only time is going to tell. But one of the best ways that we can successfully help his administration and others trying to make change in the United States is to report the news that is not being reported. That's what the Ignition News is all about, folks. And as I always do on every show, what connects all of the stories that we talked about today? And that is simple. Failure in government and what happens to the people who are supposed to serve the public and indeed instead serve themselves. So you got Detroit bearing toxic dirt when they're supposed to be making it more livable. We've got Flight 370 that disappeared and we still don't know why. We have Texas making a list of transgender people. We have Trump voters realizing they were lied to about the economy and they're jumping ships. And we have a new mayor in New York City trying to do something different by starting his term in a place that people thought was once abandoned. The pattern here is clear, my friends, okay? When our government stops working like a government for us, the working class people, eventually, just like that old subway station, it rots, it falls apart, it becomes unusable, and it serves only to exist those who get the benefit of less friction. What do I mean by that? Billionaires require less friction to steal more from the system. They require less friction to be held less accountable by tax fraud, things like this. They require less friction of involvement in investigations into their corrupt dealings, whether that's burying people with toxic dirt or stealing from the working class. When government falls apart like this, it fails to serve us. But I believe, and I hope you believe as well, that there is a better path forward. What we're doing here on the Ignition News is we're telling true stories about what's actually happening in America so that you can head out and you can make a difference. I'm so grateful that you joined the show this morning. If you're new to the show, I just want to close out with a couple little pieces of information. Number one, our show is sponsored by Ignite, Fighting Fascism in the Age of Its Rise. It is a signature podcast. It's in the Spotify top 5%. Why? Let me tell you why. Because it is the only guide right now in America of fighting fascism in 2026. There is nothing else like it out there. Everyone is talking about hopelessness and fear. Everyone is talking about being scared. Everyone's talking about how nothing can change. Well, in Ignite, we teach you how to do that specifically, not just by calling Congress, but by calling your local rep, by showing up at your local meetings, by fixing the potholes, by demanding action and change. On our last episode of Rebel Radio, we actually talked about how to file an open records request with the city of Portland. So we're holding the city of Portland accountable. I don't even live in Portland. And we're holding the city of Portland accountable for what they're doing with their flock surveillance cameras. Those are the kinds of things that we can teach you. The billionaires and the corrupt government want you to believe that you are powerless, but you have much more power than you know. You have much more power than you know. So download Ignite, Fighting Fascism in the Age of Its Rise. And the last thing, of course, please subscribe to the Ignition, our daily news show, the one you're watching right now on TikTok or listening to in your favorite platform. Why? Why do I need you to do that? Well, because the screw on my chair fell out this morning. Probably going to have to get another chair. So I need you to follow the podcast because this takes a lot of time, energy, and effort, and it means a lot. Put a comment on Spotify or in YouTube. That lets the algorithms know that you found it reading off the screen. Let us know that you found us on the podcast. And we are broadcasting every day. It's a daily news show brought to you by and for the people of this great country. I hope you have a wonderful day. If you're, as someone on the chat says, I couldn't find Ignition, but I use Podcast Addict. Okay. Not sure about that. If you're looking where you can find it, here's all you have to do. Just go to your browser and type theignition.news, theignition.news. It'll take you to where you can find the Ignition on all of your favorite channels. Now, it is Monday, brand new week. We're heading into 2026. It's going to be great. Hope you have a wonderful day. This episode will be uploaded soon. We'll see you back tomorrow for The Ignition. Have a great day, everybody.